I will be reading this morning from Paul's first letter to the church in Corinth. And if you want to follow along, it's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 8. They needed help in that church, and here is what Paul has to say. Now concerning food sacrificed to idols, we know that all of us possess knowledge, but knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. Anyone who claims to know something does not yet have the necessary knowledge. But anyone who loves God is known by him. Hence, as to the eating of food offered to idols, we know that no idol in this world really exists, and that there is no God but one. Indeed, even though there may be so-called gods in heaven or on earth, as in fact there are many lowercase gods and many lowercase lords. Yet for us, there is one God, the Father, from whom are all things and for all things we exist. And one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom are all things and through whom we exist. It is not everyone, however, who has this knowledge, since some have become so accustomed to idols until now, they still think of the food they eat as food offered to an idol, and their conscience, being weak, is defiled. Food will not bring us close to God. We are no worse off if we do not eat, and no better off if we do eat. But take care that this liberty of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. For if others see you, who possess knowledge, eating in the temple of an idol, might they not, since their conscience is weak, be encouraged to the point of eating food that is sacrificed to idols? So by your knowledge, those weak believers for whom Christ died are destroyed. But when you thus sin against members of your family and wound their conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food is a cause of their failing, I will never eat meat, so that I may not cause one of them to fall. Pastor Neil will join us momentarily.
Good morning, John. Hey, pretty good? Yeah, good. How about you? You been ice fishing, ladies? No. Any ice fishermen here? Fisher women? Golly, I got my work cut out for me. I can see that right now. Well, tell you what, as you can tell, I just got back from ice fishing. And pretty nice day for it, wasn't it, yesterday? You were outside yesterday at all? You weren't ice fishing. Pretty nice day yesterday. After it's been so cold. No? Well, anyway, yep. Yesterday, if you might have heard, was the 25th annual Josiah W. McPherson Ice Fishing Derby out on Hobbs Pond. Yep, 25 years ago, old Josiah, he was an old bachelor woodsman. He lived back up there in the woods in the 1950s. He built a camp out on Hobbs Pond on the western shore on a little point that works out there, they called it Timber Point. Well, in his later years, he would invite all the kids to come out to his place, you know, and he would drill holes in the ice, and they would do some ice fishing. And this was back, you know, the day when you had to park your car at the outlet and carry your gear all the way across the lake. It was a good 2 miles to get to his camp. And, you know, you had to get up there. Some years it was either snow-covered ice with slosh underneath it, or sometimes it was bare ice. You never could tell. But you had to walk all the way. And it said, oh, Josiah, he would drill the holes, and he would supply the tip-ups, and he would have a roaring fire going on, and all the red hot dogs you could eat. Oh, yep. Roasted, of course, you know, on a stick that you cut from the bank there in the woods. Many a son and many a daughter were given their very first jackknife for the occasion. In the middle of that stick. You had to get it just right. Now some like the single stick, we just like the hot dog on all the way. Others like the fork stick. Each have their preference. Now, old Josiah's been gone now for, I guess it's been probably 30 years, I'm assuming. And our community was rather surprised to learn that when he passed away, he had a rather sizable estate. A significant amount of it he designated to establish a college scholarship fund for the youth of our community. Well, a couple of years after Josiah's death, the folks of Brockhaven, they got together and they organized a fishing derby in his memory. And it was so popular that they did it the next year. And then the year after that, and eventually the Rockhaven Youth Recreation Club took it over as an annual event, and I say this year's was the 25th. Now there have been some changes over the years. Today you'll see more kids and parents out on the ice with their cross-country skis than you will with snowmobiles. Instead of a huge bonfire, and I can't have bonfires anymore on the edge of the lake, in front of Josiah's old camp. Camp now is owned by Randall Stearns, I think it is. It's B and Melton. They sit, you know, up in front of the old First Church on the Common on the gospel side. Randall owns the camp now, but they have to use gas grills to prepare the lunch. And while the red hot dogs are still on the menu, they're turned with tongs, not on sticks that are whittled out by the kids. But occasionally a steak will find its way on the grill, and so will some of those, the potatoes and onions and peppers, you know, wrapped in foil and smothered with butter and seasoning. One year they wanted to have beer can chicken, but because it was a youth event, they opted not to use the beer, so they called it soda can chicken. And another thing, we're seeing people use these little sawed-off fishing poles. You know, they sit there over their holes like monks in prayer. Like this. I don't get that. Even the tip-ups they use now are new and improved. No longer the old homemade single stick that you stuck into the ice, and beside the hole they have these three-dimensional things with a reel that sits underwater. Why? There have been even some who have tried attaching a waterproof game camera so they can see the fish they were coming up to bait. Others have said, why don't they make a radio-controlled artificial bait that the fisher person could actually control and move towards the pickerel? That was quickly ruled out for the tournament, along with the use of ice fishing shacks. No sirree. Nope. Today we are going to rough it out here with our gas grills and our LL Bean polyfill thermal line powered dry stretch base layer Gore-Tex Feather Challenger outerwear. The most notable change over the years has been really indeed for the better. We are seeing more and more young girls and their dads and even moms with their sons. This year, some of the adults who were there were some of the, you know, always got to have the local fishing experts. They were Danny Killington and Jed Carlisle, and Joe closed his barbershop for the day, and he was out there, and Leslie and Jerome Jordan, they're the co-chairs of the Recreation Club. Peter Warren, who's a teacher over at the Alternative High School, and Jake Bradley's right-hand man for church suppers. This year, the very special guest was Sergeant Sally McFaig. She's the local game warden. She was there handing out these little plastic junior warden badges to any child who would show her how to how to assemble and bait a tip-up. Then later, she gave rides in the warden's ATV, you know, with the lights and the sirens. I'll just say the ATV was a bit more of a hit than those badges were. Altogether, I think there were about 30, 40 people this year, kids and adults. They signed up, and as usual, the local merchants donated several items for the prizes. There was a dozen bakery items from Holgrim's Bakery. The hardware store gave a tackle box with assorted hooks, sinkers, and lures. Mason's Pharmacy and Farm Store, they donated 6 of those Thai Beanie Baby animal things. And then there was, but the grand prize was a dozen minnows a week for the entire ice fishing season from Wally's Fish Market and Bait Shop. What 8 or 9-year-old wouldn't pass up the Beanie Babies to get bait for the fishing season? Oh yes, oh yeah, not to be left out. Every participant got a small bag filled with pencils and pens and little notepads, all imprinted with Coleridge Digging and Construction. Your hole is our goal. Sam Coleridge, P.O. Box 235, Rockhaven, Maine. Sam, he's working every crowd he can. Well, anyway, amongst the families yesterday was Perry Packer. Now, Perry, you know Perry? Maybe you don't know Perry Packer. Perry, he runs Perry's Packard's garage and towing service out on the south side of town. Perry was there with his granddaughter, Samantha. Samantha, or Sammy, as her granddad calls her, is an articulate, thoughtful 9-year-old. She appreciates beauty, and her interests span way beyond Beanie Babies and Barbies. Her granddad, on the other hand, he's an avid old-school fisherman. He has a bass boat, you know, one of those bass boats with a 200-horsepower Merc cruiser. He has a collection of fishing tackle that rivals the museum collection of a Bass Pro Shop. He has his own ice shack, but he keeps that not on Hobsbawm, but over on Franklin Lake, where there are landlocked salmon and smelts to be caught. Hobsbawm is great for kids, but a serious fisherman like Perry, well, he doesn't waste their time there. Unless, of course, you have a cute, dark-eyed, ponytailed granddaughter pleading with you to take her to the ice fishing. So there they found themselves, just off Timber Point, right where the bottom of the lake drops off into the deeper part. They were tending 3 or 4 tip-ups. Harry insisted that at least they use his newer high-tech ones. And they'd been quiet through the morning. They'd had a couple of flags. They pulled up one little perch and lost the bait on the other. They had just finished their lunch. Sammy, she chose some of those potatoes and onions and peppers cooked in the foil. But Granddad Perry, now, he's more of a traditionalist. He scarfed down 3 of those red hot dogs. You know, the ones long enough so they hang off over the end of the buns. But he didn't use the buns. He just eats them. No buns. Perry noticed that when they finished eating, that the sun was disappearing behind a high layer of clouds, which were lowering as the afternoon went on. He looked to the west and said, "Storms are brewing, Sammy. Fish bite best right before the storm. Better make sure the bait is fresh and active." Sammy squirmed at the idea of checking the bait. It was bad enough that they had to use live minnows. To think that they were down there trying to swim around with a hook through their back was not something she had expected to be part of fishing. Well, all was good at the first tip-up. They checked. Minnows were lively. Depth was about right. And as they made their way around to the others, the farthest one out, all of a sudden the flag sprung right up. And the tip-up slid sideways in the hole. When they got to it, they could see the line zipping off the reel out towards the deeper water. Perry cautioned Sammy to be patient. Let the line run. He stopped for a moment, just as Perry was reaching to grabbed the pickup, the tip up, zing, off it went again. And just about all of the 100 feet of line was out and stopped. Very carefully, he pulled the reel up out of the water. He took the line in hand. He felt a little resistance and he gave a quick jerk. Set the hook. Then he passed the line to Sammy. The game was on. What seemed like 30 minutes was more like 5 when Sammy and her granddad caught the first glimpse of what was on the end of their line. It was enormous. Perry caught just enough of a look when it flipped its side under the hole. It was a pike. One that Captain Ahab would have told stories. Suddenly, Perry found himself thinking about all that grand prize, a dozen minnows for every week throughout ice fishing season. But more than that, what this beauty would look like mounted and hung on the wall in the office of his garage. Back and forth it went under the ice, and catching glimpses of it, Perry had everything he could do not to take the line from Sammy. But he knew that for the fish to count, it had to be pulled through the hole by a youth. Finally, the pike took a flip just as it came to the hole, and Sammy, seeing her opportunity, lifted her arms up as high as that little 9-year-old body could, and up through the ice came the most massive, beautiful fish she had ever seen. Perry let slip a couple of colorful adjectives, to which Samantha looked at him and scowled and said, "Granddad!" Perry helped her lay the pike out on the ice to get a good look at it. It was a beauty. Perry let out a low whistle. Sammy marveled at its magnificence. Look at those colors, Granddad. So bright out here in the light. Imagine this is the first time this fish has ever seen light like this. Look at those eyes, Granddad. Imagine the knowledge of the deep places of the lake that those eyes have. You know, as I said, Samantha was an articulate and thoughtful girl for her age. And then they came. The words Perry half expected, but dreaded. The words he feared at that moment more than any others. Granddad, we've got to set it free. She looked at this beautiful creature struggling to breathe, its first thrashing now becoming just more of a wiggle. No, no, Perry wanted to cry out. It's the grand prize winner, maybe even the biggest fish in the 25 years of the Josiah W. McPherson Ice Fishing Derby. No, we can't put it back. But he didn't say that. The vision of the monster mounted and hanging in his garage office was fading like the afternoon sun. To him, it was a trophy and a story with bragging rights waited to be told and embellished in the years to come. To Sammy, it was one of God's special creatures, of so much more value than pastries from Holgram's, Beanie Babies, or even a dozen minnows a week. Perry knew. I mean, the rules were clear. Sammy caught the fish. She pulled it through the ice. It was okay to keep the fish if you really wanted to push the matter. I mean, after all, no laws were broken. It was legally caught, certainly over the minimum size, and Sammy had landed it. And the God and Savior that Perry prayed to often when he was out fishing would certainly understand. I mean, after all, some of Jesus' closest friends were fishermen. They would understand. But it was love that reached down and gently removed the hook from the toothy jaw. It was love that reached under this massive fish with a brilliant marking and dark eyes, and with his granddaughter, slide the prize-winning pike through the hole to return to the deep haunts of Hobbs Pond. Love won out over knowledge and legality, as it should. It was St. Paul who wasn't a fisherman. Like Peter and Andrew, Paul wrote, "We know that all of us possess knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up." Perry and Samantha went home that afternoon with something that would remain with their relationship longer than a dusty old pipe hanging on a wall. The memory of a day fishing with a granddad and a granddaughter that will be fixed in their memories forever. For the special relationship, the respect and love between them ran as deep as the Pikes' home, the dark places of Paul's home. Sure, there will be days Perry will still wonder, how did he let the big one get away? But he also knew that for today, something much bigger and more important didn't get away.